In example 1, we're going to find square roots of numbers. So in the box here, it says the square root of a number. If b squared is equal to a, then b is a square root of a. So for example, if 3 squared is equal to 9, then 3 is a square root of 9. Then down here it says square roots are written with a radical symbol. So that looks like this. The number or expression inside a radical symbol, so inside here underneath, is called the radicand. Then what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the expressions below. So in letter A, we have the square root of 64. So we're thinking some number, we don't know what it is, raised to the second power has to equal 64. So what number, this is a question mark, what number to the second power is 64? So that means what number times itself would be 64, and that's 8. So the square root of 64 is equal to 8. In letter B, we have negative, or the opposite of the square root of 64. So that negative is not underneath the square root, it's outside. You can think of it kind of like a negative 1. So we're going to take a negative 8. So we already talked about how the square root of 64 was 8. The negative on the outside just means that our answer is going to be negative. Letter C, we have the square root of 0. So we're thinking to ourselves, something, that's my question mark, raised to the second power has to equal 0. So what number can we multiply by itself to get 0? That would be 0. So the square root of 0 is 0. In letter D, we have a new notation, this plus or minus that's on the outside here. So instead of writing an answer twice, you could use the plus or minus to indicate the positive and the negative value of that. So I'll show you a couple different ways to write this answer, but let's think about the square root of 25 first. When we're looking at the square root of 25, we're trying to think to ourselves, some number, or what number raised to the second power is 25. So what number times itself is 25? And that would be 5. So the square root of 25 is 5. We could write it as plus or minus 5. That's one way. Or you could write it as 5 and negative 5. Really, there's two answers here, the positive and the negative version. But you can write it separately, or you can write it as 1. And then finally, letter E, we have the square root of negative 4. So we're thinking to ourselves here, what can we take to the second power to give us a negative 4? Oops, let's try that again. So negative 4. So what we're really thinking about is what number can we take and multiply by itself to give us a negative 4? One thing you have to remember is that if you raise something to the second power, a positive times a positive is going to give us a positive answer. And a negative times a negative will also give us a positive answer. So no matter what, if we are multiplying two things together, we're always going to end up with a positive answer if they're the same things that we're multiplying. So this can never happen. We can never take the same number by itself and get a negative answer. So we would say the square root of negative 4 is undefined. If you have any questions, please let me know.